Radha Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharidhari Yashoda Nandana Bhagavata Rangana Yamuna Tira Bhagatari Yamuna Tira Bhagatari Jaya Radha Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Giridharidhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Giridharidhari Yashoda Nandana Nandana Yashoda Nandana Yamuna Tira Yamuna Tira Jaya Rama Bihari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Ashtotera Sthita Srimad, His Divine Grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. Kantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Nitai Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Guranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. It's copper.
Solid gold.
Wish it would be. And Prabhupada said, the car should be made of gold, but at least I have a Rolls Royce.
But in the deity worship class, we learned
Krishna's favorite metal.
is Krishna's favorite metal.
Yeah.
Maybe because you got to work for it. He's like, how shiny is that?
You clean it. One year for Christmas when I was first becoming a devotee, I asked my mom for a set of copper plates to offer to Krishna. She was really like, okay. Okay.
Did you get them?
Yeah. Yeah, my brother still offers his deity on those plates.
Is copper expensive?
No, she just was like weirded out because I wanted a bunch of plates for Christmas to offer to God.
Oh.
Om Ajnanatamaranyasya Gyananjana Shilakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurue Namah Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeyam Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavams Cha Shri Rupam Shagajatam Sagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Cha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavanishwari Vishubhana Shruti Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Namaste Girirajaya Shri Govardhana Namine Ashesha Klesha Nashaya Paramananda Daine Vancha Kalpatarabhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mareka Bandhu Mad Sangin Mad Guru Mad Madana Mad Nistaraka Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namostute Asaru Saru Tadayan Hatini Chotata Kara Hanamuncha Karachin Mam Premna Ritkatayospara Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritta Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devyam Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet Nastapreshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Hare Krishna everybody. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Attack by Chandavega on the city of Aranjana. Reading from text number 19. So nice. Have a new mic stand. Kalasya Kalasya duita kachit
Kalasya duita kachit
Trilokim varamichati
Trilokim varamichati
Payatitina Varishman
Ayatantina varishman
Pratyananda Takashtana
Pratyanandata kashana
Kalasya duita kachit
Kalasya duita kachit
Trilokim varamichati
Trilokim varamichati
Payatati na Varishman
Ayatantina varishman
Pratyanandata Kashchana
Pratyanandata kashana
Kalasya Duita Kachit
Kalasya duita kachit
Trilokim Varamichati
Trilokim varamichati
Paryatanti na Varishman
Paryatantina varishman
Pratyanandata Kashchana
Pratyanandata kashana Kalasya duhita kachit
Kalasya Duita Kachit
Trilokim varam ichati
Trilokim Varamichati
Paryatantina varishman
Paryantanti na Varishman
Pratyanandata kashana
Pratyanandata Kashchana Kalasya Duita Kashchit Trilokim Varamichati Paryantanti na Varishman Pratyanandata Kashchana Kalasya Duita Kachit Trilokim Varamichati Paryantanti na Varishman Pratyanandata Kashchana Kalasya Duita Kachit Trilokim Varamichati Paryantati na Varishman Pratyanandata Kashchana. Okay, word for word. Kalasya,
Kalasya
of formidable time.
a formidable time
Duita,
Duita
the daughter.
the daughter
Kachit,
Kachit
someone.
someone
Trilokim,
Trilokim
within the three worlds.
within the three worlds
Varam,
Varam
husband.
husband
Ichati,
Ichati
desiring.
desiring
Paryatanti,
Paryatanti
traveling all over the universe.
traveling all over the universe
Na,
Na
never.
never
Varishman,
Varishman
O King Prachini Bharat.
O King Prachina Varisha
Pratyanandata
Pratyanandata
accepted her proposal.
accepted her proposal
Kashtana,
Kashtana
anyone.
anyone
Translation by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. My dear King Prachini Barashtat, at this time, the daughter of formidable time was seeking her husband throughout the three worlds. Although no one agreed to accept her, she came. Please repeat. My dear King Prachini Barashat,
My dear King Prachina Varisha
at this time, the daughter of formidable time
at this time the daughter of formidable time
was seeking her husband
was seeking her husband
throughout the three worlds.
throughout the three worlds
Although no one agreed to accept her,
although no one agreed to accept her
she came.
she came.
Purport. In due course of time, when the body becomes old and practically invalid, it is subject to jara, the suffering of old age. There are four basic kinds of suffering: birth, old age, disease, and death. No scientist or philosopher has ever been able to make a solution to these four miserable conditions. The invalidity of old age, known as jara, is figuratively explained here as the daughter of time. No one likes her, but she is very much anxious to accept anyone as her husband. No one likes to become old and invalid, but this is inevitable for everyone. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirbhashesha Shunyavadi Paschatadesha Tarine Namaste Jivanandaya Dasaya Vanacharine Prabhupada Vallabhaya Snina Sudhavanurine Agyana Dvanta Gamunam Pashtita Patitatmanam Jnana Gurute Achitarine Chakshashen Maha. So, who's speaking here? Narada Muni is speaking. Narada Muni is speaking to King Prachini Barashat, who is the grandson of Dhruv Maharaj, Prithu Maharaj, in that line of kings. So we're hearing about King Prachini Barashat, and he's the father of the Prachetas. We heard about the Prachetas previously. So he sent the Prachetas off to perform austerities for material opulences. But the Prachetas were convinced by Lord Shiva to become pure devotees. So they all became pure devotees rather than becoming materialists. In a similar way, when Daksha reincarnated after being beheaded by the demon that came out of Lord Shiva's hair, what's his name? Not Vitrasura, it's forgot. He became beheaded by that demon. In a similar way, he reincarnated and he came into the Chakshusha Manu. The pastime of Lord Shiva and Daksha happened in the Swayambhuva Manu. And this pastime of Daksha happened in the Chakshusha Manu, second pastime with Daksha, wherein he reincarnates and he has many children. He's blessed. He actually performs austerities for thousands of years to see Lord Vishnu, and he sings the Hamsaguya prayers. And these Hamsaguya prayers are very beautiful, pleasing prayers. And then at that time, Lord Vishnu appears on Garuda with 8 hands. And he blesses Daksha that you can have sex millions of times and have many children. And so Daksha eagerly has many children. First he has 10,000 children, and then he sends them off to perform austerities so they can become good householders. But then they encounter Narada Muni, and Narada Muni turns them into sadhus. They all take sannyas. So Daksha said, okay, well, I'll try again. He had 1,000 other children, sent them off, and they also were convinced by Narada Muni to become sannyasis. So at that time, Daksha became very, very angry at Narada Muni, and he cursed him that he won't be able to stay in one place. And then Daksha decided to have daughters, because Narada Muni wasn't going to approach the daughters to take sannyas. So then the daughters were given to the great sages, and those daughters are the mothers of the entire population of the universe. From them, everything extended in this Manu, the lower universe, because every single Manvantara, every single change of Manus, the 7 sages change, the demigods came, Lord Indra and the demigods change, and the Manu changes. So every single Manvantara, there's a change of administration. But the higher demigods like Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, Lord Vishnu, and the sages on the higher planets, they remain. But the 7 sages change, and the various demigods change. So in that way, the life on earth is repopulated by the sages and the Prajapatis, and a new Manu is born, right? And Manu is the father of mankind. That's where the word man comes from. And the first Manu was Swayambhuva Manu. The 6th Manu was Chakshusha Manu. And a lot of the pastimes that we hear in the Bhagavatam are taking place in this Chakshusha Manu period. The pastimes of Lord Nrsingadev, the pastimes of Lord Vraha, Hiranyaksha, that's taking place in the period of Chakshusha Manu. And now we're in the period of Vaivashvata Manu, who's the son of the sun god. So This verse is speaking about old age, classic Hare Krishna philosophy, birth, death, old age, and disease. And it's one of those things that we hear so much, sometimes we don't really even relate to it. Even people who are sick, people who are old, people who are diseased, we tell them of the miseries of birth, death, old age, and disease, and they don't relate. Devotees do, but non-devotees, they don't relate. They think, yeah, I don't want to think about that. And it's hard, actually. We'll convince them. We hear how Prabhupada preaches. Prabhupada's preaching about, birth, death, old age, and disease. Why do you have to die? Why do you have to get old? Why do you have to become diseased? Prabhupada speaks like that very strongly. But still, people are not hearing. They're not hearing this knowledge that birth, death, old age, and disease is an inevitable reality of the material world, and that these sufferings are going to be repeated lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. Prabhupada's making these very basic points of Krishna conscious philosophy in his lectures. He's explaining that. Why do you have to take birth again? Why do you have to die? Why do you have to become diseased? But spiritually unminded people who are apashyatam atmatattvam, people who have no knowledge of the absolute truth, they're not interested in such talks. Right? We hear that verse. I keep quoting this section of Bhagavatam, but it's so relatable to this particular story here. Shukadev Goswami, he says, apashyatam atmatattvam griheshu grihamedinam, that these grihamedis they're blind to knowledge of the absolute truth, and therefore they have thousands of subject matters for hearing in human society. Thousands of subject matters. And they're not interested in this. So the question begins to rise, why can't we make them interested? Why can't we make them see that birth, death, old age, and disease are sources of suffering? And we have to ask ourselves, to whom are we surrendered? To whom are they surrendered, and to whom are we surrendered? What does it mean to be surrendered to Krishna? It means we accept what's favorable for Krishna consciousness and we reject what's unfavorable for Krishna consciousness in basic terms. So we accept the knowledge that Krishna gives also. We accept the Bhagavad Gita and we accept the facts. Krishna's enlightening us. And Dhira Prabhu nicely brought up yesterday that one of the aspects of knowledge is the perception of the evil of birth, death, old age, and disease. Can we actually perceive such evil? But because the materialists are surrendered to sense gratification, they're surrendered to their senses, they can't understand what the actual reality is. They can't understand the horrors of these things. Bhogaishvarya prashaktanam teya purita chetasasyam vivasyatmika buddhihi. Their intelligence is bewildered. They don't have this one-pointed intelligence. Krishna says that those who are bewildered by material opulence and sense gratification, to them the resolute determination to perform devotional service to the Supreme Lord doesn't arise. So because one is engaging in immense sense gratification, one who engages in sense gratification, for them it's very hard to develop resolute determination. This is why the process of austerity gives one determination, because one is understanding that this body is temporal, this body is full of misery, and I'm not this body, and therefore I'm determined to develop spiritual understanding. That's why austerity is necessary, for us to become determined. Samudaya na vidyate. It doesn't arise, this determination to actually develop in Krishna consciousness. It doesn't arise because one is too much overstimulated. We all experience that when we're overstimulated, like when you're in India and you're trying to walk down the road, and you can't think straight because there's just too many sounds, there's too many people, there's too many cows, and there's too many crazy things going on. And this overstimulation, you can't think straight. At least me, that's how I feel. So to whom are we surrendered? So one, generally, because of the immense amount of sense gratification that's being experienced in the modern age, they don't develop this vivasyatmika buddhi, this determination to become Krishna conscious, this determination, this understanding that the material enjoyment is futile. But in times of distress, one can induce spiritual knowledge. Why is it? Because Krishna or Shukadev Goswami, he explains, Deha patya kalatvadish atma sanya ishvasatyapi tesham pramato nidhanam pashyanapi na pashyati. He explains that for those who are blind, those who are devoid of atma tattva, who don't have knowledge of the absolute truth, to such persons, they take shelter of the body, the children, the wife, and they don't foresee their inevitable destruction. They take shelter of fallible soldiers, and therefore they don't see their inevitable destruction, even though they see that everybody else is being destroyed around them. Everybody sees that my father is getting old, my father is dying, my mother is getting old, and people are dying around me. Everybody sees such things, but because of the sheer trauma of the reality, we repress the horrors of this world. And how do we repress them? This is actually very basic psychology when you analyze it, but we see that we can see it in a traumatized person, but we're all traumatized. We don't understand that. We're all traumatized by the material energy. We're traumatized from birth. Even if we have the best karma, even if we're a demigod, still is traumatic because there's a reality, there's an underlying reality of birth, death, old age, and disease, which is such basic Krishna conscious philosophy. Srila Prabhupada, he, gave thousands of classes and just constantly makes this point to try to wake us up to this reality. So when someone is trying to ignore a trauma, what do they take shelter of? They take shelter of intoxication. They take shelter of illicit sex. They take shelter of the television, of nonsense, useless stories. They take shelter of all these things because they take shelter of associating with society, friendship, and love. La 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 la. Life is going on and I am dying, but we don't want to talk about that. Let's just joke around. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. They do this. That's how they do. And they take shelter like this, and they're ignoring the reality, which is very hard. People say, face your trauma, but we are not facing the real trauma. I was born. I'm going to die. I'm going to get old. And if I don't get old, I'm going to die soon. I'm going to die before I get old. And I'll probably get sick along the way. And so no one's facing this reality. And not even, sometimes even devotees, we say, we kind of understand. But the seriousness, the gravity of the situation has not actually been realized. There's a serious gravity here that, atato brahma jigyasa. Now is the time to inquire about the absolute truth. So in times of distress, many times people become sober-minded and they can understand spiritual knowledge. Just like I'm currently rereading the 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, hear about Chitraketu Maharaj. And Chitraketu Maharaj, he had 1 million wives. Talk about amazing. He had 1 million wives. And by happen chance, every single one of them was infertile. And so he's freaking out. He's a king. He's got 1 million wives. He's got this good life, but he can't have a son. And so in great distress, Agnira Muni beams down. And Agnira Muni says, my dear King Chitraketu, I can see that you are, living in a nice palace and that you have so much nice facility and that you're ruling your kingdom nicely, but I can understand that you are greatly distressed. And so, Maharaj Chitraketu, pays his dandavats and says, my dear sage, bless me with a son. For, a grihastha without a son, without children, is very inauspicious. And so, of course, this is material thinking, not spiritual thinking. But, Agnira Muni thinks about it and he blesses him with a son. He says, okay, I bless you that you will have a son who will bring you the greatest joy and the greatest distress. And although, that's kind of like, wait a minute, we get here in the contract here. But he didn't think like that. He was so eager for a son that he accepted, and they did the yajna, and then the fruits from that yajna he fed to his favorite wife, and she became pregnant. And a son was born. And naturally, after so many years of trying to have a son, he finally has a son. He becomes very in love. It's described that they would perform so many activities together, father-son activities. And naturally, because the son is so beloved to him, the mother of that son also became very beloved. In the meantime, there's 999,000 other wives that are being neglected. And of course, they wanted children, and they're saying they can't have children, and so they're becoming envious. And as their envy grows and grows and grows and grows, and as the boy grows and he becomes more and more beautiful, and they become absorbed in him, Chitraketu is ignoring his other wives. The 999,000 other wives decide, well, let's just kill this kid. Let's take him out. And so, they give him poison. And it's a very, very graphic scene in the Bhagavatam. It's actually like, it'll almost make you cry a little bit if you're like sensitive. It's very graphic how this scene takes place. And this fly's really messing with me. And Maharaj Chitraketu's wife, she's thinking, where's my son? I want to see my son. And so she calls her maidservant and she says, fetch my son. He's sleeping all day, he needs to get up. And so she goes in there and she, describes how his eyes were rolled back into his head. And, the maidservant screams and starts, beating her chest. And the mom comes in and sees that the son is dead. And there's all these horrible dialogue, that the mother's screaming and saying these things. And, Maharaj Chitraketu comes in and he's crying and he passes out and he's holding his son's body. And it's just a real horrendous scene we don't even got to go that deep into. And, great lamentation. And all the wives that poisoned the son are all there crying too, because they got to pretentiously cry. And then Narada Muni beams down with Agnira Muni. And, Agnira Muni's great mercy on Maharaj Chitraketu was this story. And then at this time, Maharaj Chitraketu was receptible. He was able to receive this spiritual knowledge. Narada Muni says, with these bodily relationships, they're false. They're temporary. He says that, how many, was he your son before? Will he be your son in the future? Is he your son now? It's a temporal relationship that you are taking shelter of. And Narada Muni begins to speak our Krishna conscious philosophy, gives him a lecture on Srimad Bhagavatam. And Maharaj Chitraketu becomes sober-minded. After Narada Muni brings the son back to life, to demonstrate this point, the son comes back to life and he says, oh, my son. He says, which father are you? I've had so many fathers. I've had so many mothers. I was going to a different destination. This is just one. And a similar pastime happened in Lord Chaitanya's life. I'll tell that too, now that I think about it. So Maharaj Chitraketu, he becomes an enlightened devotee of God. Right then and there. He becomes a devotee, becomes a great devotee. And of course, story goes on how he offended Parvati and had to become Vritrasura, the demon. And he's killed by Indra and goes back to Godhead. But the point being, he became a very pure devotee, even to the point where he was the reason he snickered at Lord Shiva, because he kind of thought himself on the same level. Like, they were like contemporaries in terms of our devotional service. He was a very great devotee. And in a similar pastime, also with Narada Muni in the form of Srivas Thakur, these pastimes are eternal, you see. They were doing kirtan in Lord Chaitanya's and in Srivas Thakur's house, Srivas Angam. All the devotees are chanting Hare Krishna. And then Srivas Thakur's son just dies in the other room. And, Srivas Thakur is kind of like, these devotees of Lord Chaitanya, they're a little in, I don't want to use the word fanatical, but they're intense, And the wives and the women start crying, and Srivas Thakur comes in, he says, "Shut up, ladies. I know the kid died, but Lord Chaitanya is doing kirtan. Shh." And Lord Chaitanya starts to figure out something's off here. And, Srivas Thakur's back in the kirtan. He says, "Srivas, what's going on?" "Oh, my son just died. But I didn't want to disturb your kirtan." So then Lord Chaitanya goes in there and brings the son back to life. And then the son says, I was somewhere else. This is not where I'm supposed to be now. I have a different karma. I have to go. I leave this body. It's not my karma to be here. So one becomes receptive upon distressful situations to surrender to transcendental knowledge. Even Arjuna, the example, he had so many different ideas how he didn't want to fight, and he was holding on. He was taking shelter of the temporal bodily relationship. He was taking shelter of these, my teachers and my brothers and my grandfathers. He was taking shelter of society, friendship, and love. And then the point came, Sarvashyichaham hridishani visto mata smritirgyanam. Wrong verse. Karpanya doso pahata svabhavam prachami tvam dharma samuda chaitahan yachtrayashan nishtitam bruhitame shishyashtayam sarimam tvam prapanam. Now I become confused about my duty. And in this condition, I am asking you to tell me what is certain. Tell me for certain what is best for me. Now I am a soul disciple, soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. So in that time, we can become open-minded to this spiritual knowledge. Otherwise, most of the time, the materialists, because of their engagement in sense gratification to such a high degree, they can't get their minds in the mode of goodness enough to understand these realities. You're going to die. You're going to get old. But some people do, who have first-class intelligence. Like here, Vaisheshika Prabhu tells his story how, he was like a little kid and his mom explained to him what death was, and he was like serious, like disturbed. And he decided, I'm going to figure out a solution right then and there as a child. In fact, he became so disturbed that he like went away and his mother had to find him. He was very disturbed. And he continuously never got it out of his mind until he became a devotee. It bothered him very deeply as a child. But of course, he was coming from many past lives of association with Srila Prabhupada. But last night, my Guru Maharaj was speaking in the Krishna Cove, and someone brought up this point that don't you have to experience the bad and the negative so that you can know what the good is? And Maharaj said that's called third-class intelligence, second-class intelligence. We don't have to. That's kind of a big farce. And some people, we say that. We hear that a lot, right? We have to experience the bad, or else we wouldn't know what the good is. I don't know. I think that's bogus. That's all dualistic. We're talking about non-duality. The good, there's great, and there's greatest. That's the spiritual world. It only gets greater and greater and greater. So we can be that of third-class intelligence is a person who sees that everybody around me is dying and I'm suffering, but doesn't do anything about it. This is the third-class intelligence, acting. Second-class intelligence may hear that there's something spiritual in life and that sense gratification is futile. Like in my case, I was very, very innocent when I first met the devotees. Right like a month out of high school type situation, And the devotees told me, like, Govindadat said, like, oh, it's futile. Like, that's futile. And I had to go and try to enjoy for a few more years before I really became serious, because I couldn't accept I was second-class intelligence. But after being burned, being severely heartbroken, and just realizing how, people in this world are and how the world is, I decided to become a serious devotee. So second-class intelligence, but we do hear of people who have first-class intelligence. That by hearing from an authority, one understands and realizes that trying to enjoy the material world and trying to take shelter of the fallible soldiers and not facing the reality or the trauma of birth, death, old age, and disease, instead of trying to cover it up by our, trauma bandages of intoxication and so forth, face up to the trauma, the real trauma of I left Krishna. I made a big mistake. I came to the material world. I was thinking the other day, like, it's so easy to become puffed up in our, devotional service. But if we realize the only reason we're here is because we didn't do it last life. So by being here, we start off as a failure. We're a failure right in the beginning. So we failed in our last life, and now we're here again. So, don't be puffed up. We're all getting Prabhupada's mercy and Krishna's mercy. There is first-class intelligence. And such a person who receives that first-class intelligence, he doesn't have to suffer. He can just hear from the authorities. There is birth, death, old age, and disease. And let me accept these realities. Krishna explains in the last verses of the Bhagavad Gita that one can't understand this unless he's austere. Don't explain this knowledge to one who is not austere. So austerity helps us realize the reality. It helps us face up the reality. Just the four regulative principles alone. This is basic austerity. No illicit sex, no meat eating, no intoxication, no gambling. So just that in itself, because now we're regulating our lives, we're coming to the mode of goodness, right? And it's described how the mode of goodness, one can see things as they are. One can see things as they are. One sees the reality of birth, death, old age, and disease in the mode of goodness. This is sattva gyan. So before we can become Krishna conscious, we have to become conscious, which means basically coming to the mode of goodness. Become conscious of what's going on in this world. Have sattva gyan. I can see things as they are. I'm not going to futilely try to enjoy the body and the society, friendship, and love. To entertain my mind from the reality of, this serious situation we've gotten ourselves into. So that austerity helps us. So therefore, we need to follow the regulative principles very strictly, and in that way, we develop the understanding. Right? Someone who is a vegetarian for a few years, right? We hear about the slaughterhouse, and it's horrendous to us. But you tell meat eaters, like they don't even. It just, just blank. Like they don't want to think about it. They won't think about it because it's too traumatic that I am eating a tortured beast that's been dead for weeks. They don't want to face that reality. So when one has a moment of consciousness, when Krishna gives them that, they can awaken. But it's hopeful because, on the positive side, we've talked all about, we should be positive as devotees that, we should understand that there is a back home, back to Godhead. One time Govindadatta Prabhu told me that, there is a back home, back to Godhead, and you can go there. And we don't think about that enough. Not in someone's going to say, Lord Chaitanya says, and we shouldn't desire liberty. We want to go back to Godhead to serve Krishna free of material problems. Imagine how much you can dance in a kirtan without a material body. So Yeah, there is a back home, back to Godhead. And we should aspire to go there. We don't have to stay in this world. We don't have to suffer birth, death, old age, and disease. There is a beautiful alternative that's being presented to us by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You can go to Goloka Vrindavan. And it's very positive because by receiving Mahaprabhu's mercy, you will go to Goloka Vrindavan. So, how many of us believe that there? I mean, we may theoretically believe, but how many of us have faith in that I'm going to go back home, back to Godhead? Someone might say, Prabhu, we're supposed to be humble, and we shouldn't feel ourselves worthy. No one's worthy. One of the aspects of surrender is to always expect Krishna's mercy. One of the 6 symptoms of surrender. Always expect Krishna's mercy. Prabhupada is giving the mercy. Actually, Krishna says by following the regulative principles of freedom, one can obtain the full mercy of the Lord. Right? One can obtain the full mercy of the Lord. So the word mercy is there. We're obtaining the full mercy of the Lord, going back to Goloka Vrindavan, by accepting the instructions of Sri Guru and Gauranga. We're accepting these instructions, and therefore, what is there to lament about? What is there to be negative about? What is there to let our mind become disturbed about? Because actually, we're going back to Godhead. It's a very positive situation. That I'm finished this business of birth, death, old age, and disease. And I'm going to see Krishna. And I'm starting to see Krishna now. And, Vaishnava Association, Mahaprasadam, beautiful kirtan, nice philosophy. This is a wonderful existence that the devotees have. It's a very positive existence. But when we become absorbed in the temporal situations, of material relationships and material circumstances, at that time we become bewildered as to the reality that we're going back to Godhead. So Krishna says, Tvaktva deham punarjanma naiti mameti sarjuna. That when one understands the transcendental nature of my appearance and disappearance, janma karma cha me divyam evam yoveti tatvataha tvaktva deham punarjanma naiti mameti sarjuna. One who understands my janma, my karma, my birth and activities, one who understands these things in tattva, in truth, such a person doesn't return to this material world, but comes to my abode, my eternal abode. So we're understanding Krishna's appearance. Krishna's appearance is formulated on the basis of love. One time Prabhupada was asked, why does Krishna appear? And devotees said, to annihilate the miscreants, to correct the devotees. Prabhupada didn't agree. And one devotee said, because he wants to. He wants to come and love his devotees. Prabhupada said, yes, you will go back home, back to Godhead, because you understand that Krishna doesn't have to appear personally to protect the devotees. And Krishna doesn't have to appear personally to destroy the demons or establish religion. Krishna appears personally for the pleasure of his devotees. And so Krishna descends in the form of the holy name for our benefit and to show us great mercy, great love. Krishna is inviting us home. Lord Chaitanya's inviting us back to the spiritual world. And it's all positive. It's all good if you're a devotee of Krishna. You can be that way when you're a devotee. It's all good. It's only a few more, trips around this rock, and I'm finished. Go back to Godhead. Even I don't go back to Godhead, I still serve Krishna. It's going to be really good. We know that because we're getting Lord Chaitanya's mercy. So we have to surrender not to the illusory material energy, but we have to surrender to the mercy of Krishna. Surrender to the mercy means accept the mercy, and in that way, stay positive. If we get very negative, if we get very morose as devotees, we can understand that actually I'm not accepting the mercy. We should always have a positive outlook, which manifests as enthusiasm in sadhana, enthusiasm in service, getting up in the morning every day, chanting my rounds, taking prasadam, distributing mercy, doing my service, associating with devotees nicely on the basis of Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. In that way, one becomes enlivened and gladdened, empowered. And if you have that mercy, then you can inspire others. Just by being around them, people are inspired because you simply accepted the mercy of Guru and Guranga, and that's coming down to us. So rather than, ignore the reality of birth, death, old age, and disease, and hold on to any material, shelters, surrender all of that and take shelter of Krishna. Daiviheshu gunamayi mama maya dara yaya mameva ye prapadyante maya metam tarantite. This material energy is very difficult to overcome, but for one who surrenders unto me, he can easily cross beyond it. So stop making plans for material enjoyment. Stop, trying to adjust our material circumstances to, then we'll be happy. If I can just practice Krishna consciousness in this place, at this time, in this way, then I'll be happy. I'll be satisfied, but that won't be. There'll always be something. Therefore, surrender. Because our only true comfortable position is when we just accept that I am nothing but the dust of the feet of Rupa and Raghunath. That's my position, just the dust of the feet of the Vaishnavas. And then we can be happy. So thank you all very much. Questions, comments, realizations, shares. Divya.
So, yeah, you were saying that Lord Chaitanya says, you just want to serve any place, but Prabhupada says, no, you want to get out.
Yeah.
He said, Kali Yuga is going to get really, really bad. So just, you have that desire. You do want to go back home, back to Godhead in this lifetime.
Yeah.
Get finished up.
And it's because the devotee, we don't desire to go back to Godhead to relieve our distress. Maybe at the beginning we do. That's natural. 4 types of pious people who surrender unto me. But the devotee wants to go back to Godhead to serve Krishna without the problems of the material world. It's very difficult to serve Krishna here. There's no material impediment, that's true, but you have to die in the middle of your service at some point. That's kind of like a setback. And of course, Lord Kapila Devi says, Salokya Sharshti Samipya Sarupya Katamapyutaha Dhyamanam Nagrinati Vinamat Sevanam Janaha. That such a devotee rejects all the types of liberation, including Salokya, going to the same planet of the Lord, Sarupya, having the same form as the Lord, Ekatva, the be merging into the Lord. The devotee rejects all these types of liberation if Vinamat Sevanam Janaha, if I don't get to serve the servants of the Lord. If I'm not a servant of the Lord. So, one doesn't just want to go to Vaikuntha to enjoy, one wants to go to serve. And so that's just an attitude that's developed naturally by our Krishna consciousness. And so it's not that we reject, or we think, I want to just go back to Godhead for me. We're actually developing a desire to see Krishna rather than just let me go there where I can enjoy, I don't have to be, and I can enjoy in a spiritual body. And so in that way, one doesn't understand the philosophy. One becomes attached to Krishna, wants to go and be with Krishna. And that's the position of being, going back to Godhead. One should be eager. Like the Goswamis were always crying, where is Krishna? Where is Krishna? Where is Krishna? Because this world appeared devoid of Krishna by Yogamaya. Lord Chaitanya was, in the Gambhira, crying, for the association of Krishna. Yes.
I just wonder about, if you have the position of spiritual master, and then, you have to come back for your disciples and then possibly make new ones, don't you get into a position where you just, for all eternity
We don't know.
in the material world?
I never read any Shastric. We know the spiritual master takes the karma. We don't know what constitutes someone going back and not going back.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've heard that before, but I'm, just based on Shastra, that's true. That's true that the spiritual master, Prabhupada said, I'm going to come back. And Prabhupada also said, don't make me come back. Prabhupada also at the last end of his life, he said, all my God brothers have gone back to Godhead. And the disciples were saying, well, some of your God brothers have done some pretty rough things. Prabhupada said, all my God brothers have gone back to Godhead because they've received, Bhaktisiddhanta's mercy. And so what to speak of those who've received Srila Prabhupada's mercy or the mercy of those servants of Srila Prabhupada? Ajamil went back to Godhead because he said Narayan. So, Krishna says, actually Yamaraj says in the 6th canto, he says, or is either, Yamaraj says, for one who surrenders unto the Lord one time, if you have that one sincere moment in your entire life, then you don't take birth again. Where you say, Krishna, you're my everything. So it's not, my business to get into the, transcendental bureaucracy of, who goes and who doesn't go and so forth. That's not my position. And the spiritual master, yes, will come back for the disciple if the disciple does not make it back. So as disciples, we should aspire to make it back. And as spiritual masters, we should be very serious that all of those who are under us, not just spiritual master, Diksha Guru, meaning father, mother, king, leader, teacher, worshipable demigod, in all cases, those who are our subordinates, we should be very serious to help them in their Krishna consciousness, which means, really, and I'll just end with this because this is an important point that I feel needs to be made in our community, is that, if you want to help someone become a better devotee, you have to, first off, develop, you want love and trust. Then the person will listen to you. But if you don't communicate with them, then there can't be cooperation. Communication leads to cooperation, which leads to trust and love. So you have to communicate. And if you can't communicate with them in a way that doesn't make them feel judged, hurt, scared, closed off, then such a person can't receive your mercy or the mercy of the Vaishnavas. So you have to communicate, then you have to cooperate. Narada Muni cooperates as a guru so much of the time. Narada Muni, just don't kill the whole animal, just kill half the animal, or don't kill half the animal, just kill the whole animal. Dhruva Maharaj had a material desire. I want to see the Lord for a material desire. Dhruva, okay, how about you go home, kid? No, okay, fine, I'll give you a mantra. Narada Muni's always making deals with the disciple. He's compassionately trying to bring them up to some level. And Prabhupada was the same way. You hear that, you read Prabhupada's letters, okay, well, if you can't, then at least do this. And Krishna also, he says, and if you can't follow, if you can't, just fix your mind upon me, follow the rules and regulations. If you can't do that, try to work for me. If you can't work for me, do this. And Krishna's cooperating. So first off, communication, then cooperation, and then love and trust. And when love and trust exists, we can elevate people. So as a guru, one has to be that way. As a disciple, one has to accept that. And yes, the guru, will come back, said if the disciple doesn't make it. But we don't understand how that works, so we can't, say that. We don't know the, Shastrically, we don't know the position of such a person. So Kirtanesvara, Abhidhammadar Prabhu.
Yeah, you mentioned enthusiasm, which is so important. But along with that, we also need to be grateful.
Right. Yeah.
That's a key thing, is to be grateful for everything we've got and not take it for granted.
Yeah, that's gratitude in our Krishna consciousness basically gives us humility. It gives us all facility for all the other qualities. Because if we actually realize the import of what Lord Chaitanya is giving, then you have to be grateful, and you realize the undeserving nature of that. that I'm being given something I don't deserve. How did I end up in this building doing what I'm doing right now, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam? It's just amazing. And it also helps us be positive. So thank you for that point.
And helps us have love.
Yeah. It said that, like when they do they put the like EKGs or ECGs, in the brain waves. Gratitude basically neutralizes all other negative and positive emotions. It's like this state of a stability. We can always be grateful for what we have. There's so much to be grateful for, but people generally don't focus on that. Especially devotees, we live the greatest lives imaginable, but still we can find faults to find and so forth. So thank you all very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki.